out of there. You know, he could barely, he sits down in a chair, he ends up on the floor. You couldn't tackle him. Nothing would hold him, you know? You have him as a sleepover, he start in the bed, he wake up on the floor. He's fall asleep upstairs, wake up downstairs. He just that slippery, he's just, he was slick. Back in the day, they used to have, cereal or macaronis. And in the end of the bottom of the box, they'd have a little trinket in there. A little, a rape whistle or something like a little, one time it was a piece of, like a peppermint stick. And it was just loose in the box. Actually, that might have just been somebody just spit a damn mint into the cereal. But, they had a different thing. When I was young, they had a little item in there. And you'd reach your hand. Dude, I remember when you got that cereal, the Frosted Flake. When you get the Frosted Flake and they used to have a toy in the bottom. They would put a toy in the bottom, a rape whistle or a little, a picture of a monkey kind of holding its nuts or a little statue of, Benedict Arnold. And they'd put it in the bottom and you had to slide your hand. You had to have precision and get your hand right down the side of that box all the way to the bottom. And then you had to make a perfect right 90-degree turn with your hand and feel up under the side of the cereal. Take you 9 minutes, bro. If somebody came up and you couldn't get your arm out fast. This was a slow vibe because you couldn't spill the cereal out of the bag. And but you ain't spilling cereal where I'm from. Because if a flake hits the air, somebody's tongue is going to meet it halfway to the ground. And you get that and you reach your hand out under there and you get that prize and you would pull it out. And it would be a tattoo or something, it says give blood on it, or it would be a neck tattoo or something. You could lick it and put it on your neck. It says, something, save these hoes, or, something fun, or like a little locket around. It would have like a little locket with a picture of like an old man or something in it that you didn't know. And you could wear that. But they had different prizes in the cereal box. And man, it was fun to have back in the day. That's one thing I really, really miss. I miss a lot of back in the day, man. I miss being young. I miss, I'm still happy that I'm alive, though. That's the thing. It's like I'm happy to be able to, he might be into some wild stuff. He might be into homoeroticism. So you never know. It's kind of a gateway. It's kind of, the suckers at the bank can be a gateway drug to homosexuality, and which is fine. So what I'm saying is this: a sucker, though, those sucker sticks late at night in a Halloween candy sack can poke through the bag. And that's dangerous because you risk losing all your candy. And I remember one night, me and my brother at the end of the night, we were furious. One of us was Raggedy Ann because my dad screwed up and got the wrong costume. Freaking unbelievable. One of us was Raggedy Ann, and one of us, basically my brother, he had glued a bunch of fucking laundry to his shirt. I don't know what he was, dude, an idiot. So, but we're out there, we had our sacks of candy, and we are, at the end of the night, you're sweaty, you're angry. This was one time my mom had to work, and my dad had to take us trick-or-treating. And we got lost, bruh. And we ended up in kind of like a sketchy neighborhood, and we almost got fucked up a couple times. Some of the kids over there didn't even know it was Halloween, bruh. So they don't know what we're talking about. Trick or treat. They thought one person, it was a black person's house, honestly. And I guess they had a dude there. His name was Trick or Treat. We're like, trick or treat. And they're like, hold on, let me get him. And then this dude showed up, man. And he seemed like a nice guy. But anyway, but that was it was back in the day. But I just missed it, man. And my brother and I would fight with those candy sacks. Bam, bam, bam. You get violent at the end of the night. And then when your candy sack broke, it was nighttime. So now you're feeling all on the street in the dark, trying to know what's a candy and what's a little stick or a leaf, or a dirty, sometimes they have dirty barrettes out in the yard and out in the street. And you don't know. You're trying to shovel all this shit back in your sack. And you don't know what's candy and what's a little chunk of sweetener or a little sugar chunk. Or what's just anything. What's a damn, a little mouse skull. Sometimes they might have a mouse that died and his skull is still out there. just looking around into the world. And you put all that shit because you're in a hurry now. You got to get home. My dad's yelling. Mr. Trick or Treat's trying to sell us a fucking lawnmower or something. And we got limited time. We got to get home. So you shoveling all the shit you've been fighting. That sucker ripped through your candy sack, that sucker stick. And now you got to get home. So you shovel anything you can off the ground real fast, a bunch of rocks and shit. You get home, you got like 8 pieces of candy. You got you got one of those little, you got maybe like a lighter. You got somebody you might have like a dirty Christmas ornament because somebody was riding down the street one time with their ornaments in the car and they got in a domestic dispute and fucking threw them all out. And you got one of those. You got a bunch of rocks. You got some gum, but it's not new gum. It's like old gum that somebody had just spit out their window or something. And it's, it's hard now. But you just get home with who knows what. This boy named Morgan, bro. It's something. People call him Damp Morgan. And Damp Morgan was, he had sweat. I guess it was sweat coming out of him or something. Like Mother Nature had kind of like right before he was born, he'd kind of, his mother had swished him around in her womb a little bit before she let him out in the world. And he had extra kind of glistening on him all the time, extra sweat, And Morgan was a good wrestler, bruh. Damp Morgan, because you couldn't wrestle him. He'd slide out of anything. He'd slide out of this. He could barely, he sits down in a chair, he ends up on the floor. You couldn't tackle him. Nothing would hold him, You have him as a sleepover. He start in the bed. He wake up on the floor. He's fall asleep upstairs, wake up downstairs. He just that slippery. He's just, he was slick. He was a slick boy. And I think Mother Nature just had kind of, it's like he had his own, he was still gestating a little bit. He wasn't fully developed. You ever go to the car wash and you get all the different settings, and that last setting, sometimes you don't know when it's done, when your car is dry or it might still be slick, but you got to go. And you go off and you riding around with, soapy everything and slicked up. And that was like Morgan. He was always slick. You pat him on the back and your hand would slide right off of him. And and Damp Morgan would go trick-or-treating with us, and people always gave him extra candy because he looked a little wet. And there's something that happens to you when you see somebody and they kind of glistening a little bit. It makes you want to show up for them. It makes you want to show up for them a little more. And then after a while, they put cinnamon on them, or they put a little bit of powder or something on them to kind of, so we could get a little more grip. I remember in 4th grade, they put powder on his back every day. So if he sat down or something, it could hold, he could hold the line and not lose, just end up on the ground. And he was just about the damn slickest kid. I wonder whatever happened to him. I know he dried up and eventually went on to college, but I got to check in with some of his family because he was just a unique bird. I think his nerves were his nerves were just frenetic and he was a little bit leaky. But Mother Nature does that. And he would come trick-or-treating with us and he got all the candy, bro. When you have fucking Damp Morgan with you out there, people give you everything. People give you money, bro, hugs, prayers, amulets, all type of things. Amulets. Pictures of fucking people would draw a picture of a diamond or something and give it to you because if they didn't have a real diamond or anything to give you, just give you fucking cheap artwork of nice shit though. So different time, man. Mother Nature has different plans for us. You had to use your imagination. I had to imagine a tit. I remember we go out, they had this tree and somebody had chiseled some nice tits into it. We go out there, bro, and hopefully you go out there and hopefully nobody else was out there and you could pleasure yourself by it. But if you went out there, sometimes some dude's out there, somebody's parked in their truck right by it and you're like, fuck, man, somebody's already using that thing. And that was something beautiful, man. Somebody, I don't know who had done it. Nostradamus, Michelangelo, Geppetto, I don't know. But somebody had come and chiseled some of the most beautiful wooden tots into this tree. And man, when you got out there, bro, it didn't even look like they were wood. It looked like they were made out of titty meat. And it was just beautiful, man. Somebody had done it. The nipples were, they'd painted these these robust kind of hearty sort of Italian kind of, salchicha de pavo, kind of little, I mean, they didn't even look like nipples. They looked like just, nervous little, nervy little hood ornaments on on the tip of each tot. And man, you'd see, and you'd get out there by the tree and you'd hope nobody else was out there so you could, enjoy a little bit of quality time between yourself and the dark arts that were flowing through your brain veins, brains. And you'd be out there, but sometimes you go out there and already have a dude out there, or somebody out there, a man would come out there, sometimes do a picnic. And also, some of these romantic guys out there, they got a nice spread, the cheese and everything, and then they still enjoying their own body, looking at that tree. But that was a